The People's Progressive Party would like to recognize and commend the valiant efforts over the years of the government and rice farmers across the country for returning the industry to respectability and profitability. These efforts culminated in Guyana recording its highest figure in history when rice production surpassed 400,000 tons in 2013. This could not have been achieved without the enabling environment created by the government since taking office in 1992, and the dedication and hard work of the thousands of rice farmers who have shown confidence in the industry. It must be recalled that rice was always a priority of the PPP-led administration, even before independence. The emphasis was and continues to be on the welfare of farmers and infrastructural development. Further, the PPP would like to remind of how rice and those involved in its production were generally de-emphasized by the PNC administration, so much so that many farmers were forced to abandon their lands and either migrated or sought alternative means to eke out their livelihoods. In addition, many were left at the mercy of financial lending institutions and forced into bankruptcy driven by extremely and unimaginable high interest rates. Thousands of acres of arable land were forced out of cultivation as a result of the harsh policies and uncaring attitude of the former PNC administration. These situations not only resulted in farmers being demoralized, with many losing their livelihoods, but precipitated the collapse of the infrastructure, which is crucial to rice production and development. With its working class ideology, the PPP in 1992 embarked on its mission to rebuild Guyana. The party remains steadfast to this challenging endeavor, having inherited a bankrupt nation, and today, the positive transformation of the nation, especially the rice industry, continues to vindicate the PPP-led government's developmental trusts and policies. The enabling environment created through the financial sector not only resulted in a vast reduction of interest rates, but provided mechanisms through which farmers were empowered and their confidence restored. This renewed enthusiasm of the farmers and the commitment of the PPP government to rehabilitate and install new infrastructure across rice farming areas have been the catalyst for the unprecedented development seen in the industry. This has served to return a sense of pride and respectability which were taken away from rice farmers during the previous administration. This sustained development, which have seen new factories, thousands of acres of new land being cultivated, sustenance of traditional markets, and new markets in Venezuela, as well as in Haiti, a market which provides 100,000 metric tons of rice, being negotiated presently. The government and the GRDB will be engaging Belize, Guatemala, and Brazil in purchasing rice from Guyana. The Minister of Agriculture will be leaving shortly for Latin America to pursue markets in that region. We are hopeful that the situation in Venezuela becomes normal so that export to that country can commence. The improved quality of our rice through a variety of value-added products have redounded to the tremendous benefits of all. This being pivotal to the robust and continuous growing economy, rice has now taken its rightful place in being a major contributor to the country's gross domestic product, GDP. Today, as a result of these efforts, Guyana's rice production has become exemplary. Domestic and international consumers can have a variety of choices of a high-quality rice product. The rice industry's strong showing over the years has also tremendously improved the lives of farmers, their families, workers, and the communities at large. The support mechanisms provided by the government through the creation of the enabling financial environment and scientific research are demonstrative of the PPP-led government's unflinching commitment to the development of agriculture, in this case, the rice industry. It is also indicative of the importance our party attaches and the government it leads has attached to the development of this industry. Our party commends the efforts of the committed and dedicated rice farmers and the government for not only resuscitating the industry, but to ensure that it continues along a path of development and modernization. The next statement is as follows. 3 weeks ago, the People's Progressive Party had cause to flay the opposition parties for grossly misrepresenting, misinforming, and misleading our people, just to discredit the PPP. Then, the issue was the allegations which were levied by the opposition, particularly the APNU and the acolytes of the AFC against the REOs of Region 7 and 8. I have recently received the report from Region 9 on similar allegations made against the PPP administration in respect to developments in that region. After the opposition visited Sand Creek, where the PPP government built a secondary school, where there was none before, there were allegations of food shortages in the dorms and beds that are unfit for students. The opposition APNU continues to put negative spins on the good efforts of the government and those who are making contributions to the improvement of our children's welfare and education. A total of 219 students attend the Sand Creek Secondary School. 45 of those students are from Regions 8. The regional administration is not aware that there is a need for additional dietary supplies. The supply is from Sand Creek. And had there been a shortage of food, there would have been a strong outcry. However, contrary to PNC propaganda, this has not been the case. The region has all the bills and receipts for the supply of dietary items, and they can easily be made available to those for guidance and confirmation. Food for the Poor, a long-established, respectable, and well-meaning NGO, and a great contributor to our people in need, had donated beds to the school. The Ministry of Amerindian Affairs facilitated the beds being transported to Sand Creek. These beds were found to be in need of some minor repairs, and a contractor had been contracted to do remedial work on them. The administration has not and would never put our children to sleep on beds which are not fit for children. Concerning the crack in the beam at the Sand Creek Secondary School, the regional administration is aware of the problem and has since contracted a contractor to do remedial work. The headmaster has agreed that 2 new columns be mounted so as to secure the said beam. There are other visible signs of structural defects. An urgent request was sent to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, for an engineer from the Central Ministry to check on this issue. One must note that the contractor was a former top PNC member and a long-serving member of Parliament. The Auditor General's report has words that question the supervising consultant for the project signing off on the shoddy work done by the contractor. Concerning the Sand Creek Bridge, that is 18 miles from Kurpakari, this bridge was repaired twice by MMC. Currently, the regional engineer continues to visit and monitor this project. Materials are on site and work is ongoing. The contractor was recently in Georgetown to purchase additional materials and is working to ensure that this project is completed in a timely manner. The opposition has made a shindig about the temporary electricity setback in Letem during the second week of February, when they were well aware that the government is assisting the Letem Power Company to upgrade the electricity system. At that time, there were 2 mechanics in the region servicing the generators now in place, while 2 new generators were purchased for Letem. The supply of electricity has never broken down in this area, though the system was ailing for some time. However, the government has since last year been working with the Letem Power Company to modernize the entire network. A new distribution system is now in place, and a new generation site is being constructed. Some 2 weeks ago, the 2 new generators were installed, and the people of Letem have been receiving 24-hour supply of electricity. The PPP government is not about band-aid solutions, which the PNC-led APNU is historically famous for. Our administration makes strategic interventions aimed at producing solid, lasting solutions. What we find as dishonest is the raw politics of the opposition, who, in spite of having the correct information at their disposal, still tries to mislead our people. I wish to repeat what I charged on February 17th. This strategy of casting aspersions, misrepresenting facts, and creating their own stories has been used in the National Assembly by the senior officials. The PPP again commends regional officials who have been advancing the developmental agenda of our people and who have taken their valuable time to answer the wicked, malicious misrepresentations of the opposition. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm will open the floor for questioning. Madam?
Yes. Comrade, yes, heartening news about the rice industry, and interesting comment about the opposition killing the rice industry. Later down the road, would this present administration accept the criticism that it killed the sugar industry? Sugar was at its lowest ever.
No, I don't think. First of all, on the question of rice, you know, in the 1957 to 64 period, the Jagan government was referred to as a rice government. And there was a view that all that government was concerned about was cultivating rice. In fact, it was called a rice government and a coolie government. This was in the context of the racist propaganda that was being propagated at that time. I remember as a young man growing up in the city, people even used to say that the PPP government at that time would take over St. George's Cathedral and use it as a bond to store rice. This was in the context of the anti-communist, anti-religious propaganda that was circulating in those days. Now, it was at that time that Guyana became famously known as the breadbasket of the Caribbean, because there was such an abundance of food, particularly rice, that we even had enough to export to Cuba. Well, the rice industry has gone through its difficulties under the previous administration, which the statement referred to. And the PPPC administration, again with the statement referred to, continues to pay clear attention, because food security is very critical for a country like Guyana. Now, in terms of the sugar industry, everybody in Guyana knew, and I, as the Minister of Trade and International Cooperation, you would remember, led the negotiations at the World Trade Organization and within the ACP EU negotiations on the question of the future of sugar. One of the critical issues at that time was the removal of the preferential market for ACP sugar into Europe. These were challenged at the World Trade Organization, and the European Union responded to it by discontinuing this preferential market access for Caribbean sugar, or ACP sugar in general, into Europe. Then there was a question of beet sugar competing with raw sugar from these ACP countries. There was also, the European Union formulated a package of assistance to the sugar industry in many ACP countries, which we ourselves benefited from. And so it was widely anticipated. This is no sneaky development. It was widely known and anticipated that sugar would be going through difficult times in the ACP countries. We began preparing ourselves for that by looking for more market access in Caribbean countries. And I recall the negotiation between Guyana, Trinidad, and Tobago for us to encourage the Trinidadians to set up a facility here in Guyana to transform brown sugar into what is called white sugar, to be re-exported to Trinidad and Tobago, which is one of the largest consumers of sugar in the manufacturing sector, so that Guyana sugar industry would grow and expand. This has always been a quest on our part for countries in the Caribbean to invest in Guyana, particularly in the manufacturing sector, but they have been very willing to do so. So we've had to take measures internally to address this problem. For example, the packaging of sugar, the rebranding of sugar, transforming bagasse into energy, and the modernization of the Skeldon Sugar Factory. All of this was aimed at countering the negative impact which Guyana, as part of the ACP, would suffer from as a result of the discontinued preferential market access into Europe. What we are experiencing now is precisely that. What we are experiencing now in the sugar industry is a manifestation of what was long anticipated would come. I would describe what we're experiencing now as mainly teething problems associated with the transformation of the sugar industry as a result of the negative impact of the withering away of preferential market access to Europe.
But how does that affect the actual production? I mean, many have been known to undergo teething problems, but there was still this level of production. Here we've produced...
Where, for example? In which ACP country?
Mauritius?
No, sir. Mauritius is going through similar difficulties.
Yeah, but their production hasn't dropped if we check the records. But I want...
You sure about that?
Sure about that, Chief.
You have the figures?
I check the figures every day. No, but our production has been the lowest in 22 years.
Uh-huh.
That is during, I mean, this government has been in office for what?
No, it may be the low production in 22 years, but it was not low production every year of those 22 years.
No.
Good.
Production
That's
in
an
the
important
last
point
5
to make.
years.
That's an important point to make, because people would tend to believe that for every one of those 22 years, sugar production was going down. Good. Well, I'm making that point because I would like to make that distinction. So, if we're saying it's the lowest point in 22 years, it doesn't mean to say that there may not be a rebound after this period, this difficult period we're going through. There's no one that can say, that has a prognosis that can anticipate intelligently or on the basis of scientific data that the sugar industry is not likely to rebound. Gaisuco is they have a new CEO. Gaisuco is going through some changes, in agricultural production and many of the other. We know what the problems are. Not that we don't know what the problems are. We know what the problems are in the sugar industry. It's not that we're searching for the problems or we're at a loss, as Vera sometimes try to make out that we don't know. If there's any government in this country, and I like to emphasize this point, if there's any government in this country that knows how to run a sugar industry, it's a government in which the People's Progressive Party is a major player. And that is a historical fact. In the agriculture sector, if there is a government that successfully developed the agriculture sector in Guyana from colonial days to now, it is a government led by the People's Progressive Party.
So you're going to accept the criticism that you're running sugar into the ground?
No, sir. I will never accept that criticism. And I don't know about running it into the ground either. That, I think, is an over-exaggeration. That is an over-exaggeration. But I would say that the sugar industry, yes, we recognize where the problems are, what the problems are. We are working, that is to say the administration is working to address those problems. And I'm optimistic that given time, the industry will rebound. I noticed in the press that the Jamaica sugar industry also experiences some difficulties. The sugar industry in many of the other CARICOM countries are in a much more difficult situation than we are. I think Guyana is the only shining star so far, even though we're going through these difficulties.
Yeah, next. Yes.
Yes, you talked about rice production and the enabling environment being provided by the current administration. But right now, the problem that the farmers are complaining of is a drop in prices for paddy, given production has increased, but markets have not increased similarly, export markets.
Well, as I said, we have never supported fully the exportation of paddy as such. Although some countries want us to export the paddy so that they can mill the rice in order to get the value added. We are for the exportation of rice because Guyana has much to benefit from the milling of rice here in Guyana, the byproducts of rice milling here in Guyana with the use of paddy. As I said in the statement, efforts are being made to search for more markets, greater market access. We also are working very steadfastly to address the question of phytosanitary measures or barriers that countries might want to raise in respect to export of rice and other agricultural products. So I think greater market access into non-traditional markets is one of the major challenges that we are faced with and which we are working assiduously to address.
You had mentioned that you were looking for 100,000 tons of rice export to go to Haiti.
Yes.
When was this decided upon? And is there
When it was decided upon?
Yeah, and is there currently a team there? I know that Mr. Jagaran Singh had been in Belize later last week, sorry.
I can't say exactly what date and time it was decided upon, but I know as a matter of policy, negotiations have been going on between the authorities in Guyana, the export authorities in Guyana for rice, and the private sector in Haiti. In fact, I think it was some time ago when President Ramata was at a CARICOM meeting in Haiti. We did meet with one of the major rice importers in Haiti. And he expressed a tremendous amount of optimism about the rice, about the export of rice expanding in Haiti. Haiti has a large population, as you know, so that that market has great prospects. Like I said, I can't say exactly when the deal was signed or whether it has been completed in terms of negotiations, but I can say that is a market that has great potential for exports.
The General Secretary Secretary of the RPA, Mr. Kumar Siraj, sorry. He had spoken a little bit with me last week about this, and he had stated that it was more that with Haiti would have to be a private-private partnership as opposed to government intervention. So what does this mean then if it's the government is leading the way?
No. The government facilitates the negotiations. After which the government recedes and the private sector people negotiate prices and things like that.
But we know that Haiti would have wanted a significant reduction in the price because of the world markets currently.
Who knows that?
Well, that's what we're getting from the RPA.
From who?
The RPA is saying that on the record, that
Oh.
Haiti would want a significant reduction in the price.
All right, but they may want that, but then they have to negotiate with the producers over here, the manufacturers over here. It doesn't mean because they want that they will get that. You also have to take into consideration what the millers over here want as well, and that is why they will have to sit down and negotiate the question of price.
Is the 100,000 a little bit?
I can't speak to that specifically. I think that's a matter for the persons who are more attuned to those kind of issues.
When are some of these markets likely to, these new markets likely to come on stream, given that the farmers are complaining there's still large stocks of rice in the silos and paddy that you can't get off, and now you got this monster crop coming, and that's going to add to that unless you get the markets done.
Well, I think we need to just walk aggressively. We just have to walk aggressively for greater market access, traditional markets, non-traditional markets, work with the Venezuelan government to ensure that the situation there allows for the importation of rice under the Guyana-Venezuela agreement and so forth. So all is not lost.
When you got, sorry, well, do you have an idea when we're likely to see some new markets emerging? I mean, we got Venezuela, we had Jamaica last year. We should price, I'm not sure.
Well, I can see the headline saying words to the effect, Rohi unable to say.
Don't wait on the man.
Rohi unable to
No,
say
you
when
know,
new
sir.
markets will
You
open
don't
up.
deal with rice. We ain't no say so.
No, but I deal with journalists.
No, we ain't gonna deal with that. All right.
Rohi unable to confirm when new markets will
No,
open.
you can't do that. We ain't no just ask.
Yeah, well, I have to intelligently anticipate and think about how to answer the questions. Okay, thank you.
How promising, you can't say, GS, you can't say how soon these new markets will come on stream. Can you say, you mentioned a visit to Latin American countries by Dr. Ansani. Can you say how promising these negotiations are?
Well, the most that I can say on that is the fact that the GRDB and the Ministry of Agriculture is aggressively going after those things. They must have done the research. They must have done the research, and they must have initiated contact with the relevant authorities in those countries to, go after those markets. So I would think they did work before they do what they're doing.
Just given the fact that harvesting is already started, and
That
it's
who?
like harvesting is already started and it's likely to complete probably by the end of this month,
Mhm.
early April. Now they're estimating 250,000 tons. In it, yeah, the
Yeah, I
first
know,
round.
I know,
Plus we have an
I
additional
know.
100,000 tons of paddy still here.
I know. All of that we know. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to repeat what somebody said before about the panic button. All I can say, I think we have to work hard, and I believe that the GRDB and the Ministry of Agriculture is working hard to address this problem, having first-hand information of the challenge that is facing them.
You have the Americans in some of these markets, and the Americans are supplying rice cheaper than we can.
Yeah, well, that's Uncle Ben rice that is highly subsidized.
Mhm.
So we can't compete with subsidized rice.
So we can get in the markets.
Well,
Well, Jamaica, so that's
This,
just the
you know,
current
people have tastes, T-A-S-T-S. You have Folgers Crystals, you have Nescafe, you have Blue Mountain coffee, all is the same coffee. You see, you have Uncle Ben rice, you have basmati rice, you have Guyana rice, you have all kind of different rices. You know, it's a question of choice on the part of the people. Right now you have basmati rice being sold in Guyana, together with our rice.
We actually import rice.
People import basmati rice. I don't know if they import it for the personal use or what, but you can't get it in Guyana. There are lots of things you can get in Guyana. It's a question of taste and affordability.
Is there a conscious effort to prepare farmers that they're going to have to accept a reduction in paddy prices?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of that. I haven't heard that anywhere so far.
Okay, well, there has been a decline in rice prices since August of last year. It's about $90 to $100 US per ton now. So
I can't comment on that, I'm sorry. And please, again, it's not Rohi unable to comment on rice prices and so forth. No, I don't call anybody and tell him anything, even in the Chronicle. I don't do that.
Mr. Rohi, can you say what's happening with the new rice exports to Venezuela? I heard you talk about waiting on the situation there to ease so that the export of rice could commence for this period.
No.
What's happening there?
I don't want to sound like Arkle. Arkle,
Or to
Family.
family.
yeah. Instead of him saying, did I do that, I don't want to say that I say that. But rather than saying we're waiting on the situation there to normalize, and we're waiting on the authorities in Venezuela to signal the need to recommence exportation.
How long has it been delayed by? When it was supposed to go?
I can't say specifically how long.
You're taking questions outside it,
Yeah, sure, why not? I'm here.
You know, I like to ask you about police.
And by the way, I saw you wrote something about the police this in this today's paper.
They deserve the credit. They're working on it. And then I wanted to talk to you about, has there been any change in the 911 system? When last you spoke, you said you were fed up on what happened. You don't have to know that now.
I think that's a question that is a loaded question.
No, no.
I thought that I had announced, I don't recall, but I thought that I had announced some time ago that the Ministry of Home Affairs has brought some experts / specialists to Guyana to examine the defects in the 9/11 system. They were here in Guyana last week. I met with them. They also met with a number of other people who have an interest, or what usual quote-unquote stakeholders. And I haven't had a report since they left because I was out of town. So I'm waiting with great anticipation on the report, but I felt that it was necessary to bring them here at great cost for them to rectify, to do some rectification of the 9/11 system, because the complaints were numerous, and therefore we couldn't just sit on our hands and do nothing about it. Apparently, we don't have the capacity internally in Guyana at the national level to correct this deficiency. And so I thought it was necessary to bring persons from outside, since we don't have the national capacity here to address this problem.
Is it the same with the others, the 912 for fire and the 913 for others?
What they have proposed is that we have a single number. That's a consolidated system, so to speak, so that if you call, they have proposed this. It's not been agreed to, because it's a recommendation that we have to consider. Where, for example, if there's a fire, you call the same number. If there's a police request, you call the same number. If there's an accident, you call the same number, whether it's 911, 912, or whatever. So they have put up some proposals which they told me they will put, which I haven't seen as yet, which we will have to study and agree whether we keep a 9/11 separate from 9/12 or whatever the case might be. But they've told me that in a number of countries, they use a consolidated number that can trigger emergency services, whether it's fire, police, or wherever the case might be.
And if we will still talk about the police chief, we notice in the force that there, how many, you now got one deputy commissioner when the report had suggested, oh God, I don't remember the
Which
figures.
report?
Huh?
Well, you said
An
the
early
report.
There was a report sometime back where, what the hell they call it, that stipulated how many assistant commissioners you should have and how many deputy commissioners.
Where did that report come from? Where was the genesis of that report?
There was an analysis of the Guyana police force. I'm unprepared here, but I remember that.
Hmm.
We noticed, however, that the number of assistant commissioners has declined. There hasn't been a promotion for quite some time in the senior ranks. What's happening there?
I don't agree with you that the number of assistant commissioners have declined. The last time there were promotions, we promoted a number of assistant commissioners through the Ministry of Home
Yes,
Affairs.
some of them resigned. They get this promotion because they were going off, retiring.
I don't think they got the promotion because they were retiring. The promotions are not given as a golden handshake, if that's what you're suggesting. Promotions are given on the basis of merit and years of experience on the force. So while it might appear, that these promotions come just on the eve of a person's retirement, it ought not to be seen as a golden handshake to go off with a good pension. Not at all.
We're
No.
going to have no promotion for it here.
Yeah, that is true, and that is because, especially the officers level, and at the cadet level, these promotions have to be considered by the police service commission, and that's an issue right now that remains outstanding. But it doesn't mean that there aren't recommendations awaiting the consideration of the Police Service Commission. Now, I read somewhere in the newspaper, I think it was in the Kaicho News, which is famous for these tantalizing stories, that the police force is facing a crisis. I can point to at least 3 articles that were written by the policeologists at Kaicho News about the police force facing crisis situations, and it never did. But the crisisologists and the policeologists at Kaicho News, they seem to be a favorite topic of theirs to generate controversy and instigate controversy in the force. These things will come in time when all the chips are in place. Unless you have information to the contrary.
I got to rely on you.
Oh, okay. What about the person who writes, the policeologist and the
I'm going to talk to him.
crisisologist?
I'll talk to
and-
him about it.
Okay.
Where are the consultants from for the 9/11?
The what?
Review? Where are the consultants from for the 9/11 review? I didn't say
Where are they
9/11
from?
review.
When you
said
say
that-
where they from, you mean the country, the
Yeah,
organization?
the organization.
You need to
how
be
many of them-
a little specific when you asking me questions.
My apologies.
Yeah. So what do you mean by where they're from?
Which organizations are they from? Which countries are they from?
Oh,
How many of them were here? How long did they stay? When do you expect a report? What did they review? How much are you paying them?
Well, I think I answered most of those questions already.
No.
I said I think I answered most of them already. We may agree to disagree on that. But it doesn't mean because you say no, the answer is no. So
Who would you like?
they're
to
from the United States, brought through a consultancy in one of the Caribbean countries. There were 2 of them. You need the gender factor as well?
No, no.
If you'd like.
Okay. And they spent, I think, 5 days, 4 or 5 days in Guyana, moving around the country, visiting police stations, etc., talking to stakeholders. I don't recall the exact amount of money I'd asked Cabinet to approve, but it's a tidy sum. It's a tidy sum.
Do you think that was enough time for them to adequately assess the deficiencies?
Well, these are experts, you know. These are not people who come here to learn. These are experts who have dealt with 9/11 systems in many other countries of the world. And they've read about this thing before they came here. So they knew exactly what to look for. It's like Pushpa going to work in the Bahamas as a journalist. She doesn't have to start from scratch. She already knows the journalistic, routine. So the moment she lands, she can be up and flying. Am I right?
I think I answered those questions.
Any other? Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I don't want to hear a laugh like that from you. It's what you call
I'm going to do
a
that.
senior laugh. Huh?
You look like Marlon Samuel during the battle yesterday. I like it. I like it.
Welcome to the PPP weekly press conference. With me here this morning is the GS. He's back again after he was out of town last week in other part of the country. GS, welcome back to our press conference. We have 2 statements which will be read by the GS, after which we will be fielding questions. GS.
Good morning.